Dan and Amy, well, tomorrow the show strike, as one Chicago public school teacher from Lane Tech called it, occurs. That is a walkout of Chicago public school teachers as a show of solidarity, I suppose, as a show of defiance against Tiny Dancer and the CPS superintendent and the state of Illinois and math. And this is the predicate for perhaps, if the impasse continues over who pays what percentage of the teacher's pension contribution, the predicate for a teacher strike. This would be the second in 4 years. And to discuss tomorrow and the near future, we're now joined by Jesse Sharkey. He's the vice president of the Chicago Teachers Union. Jesse, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, thanks for having me on.
So give us the lay of the land. What happens tomorrow and what's the impact you're trying to have?
Well, it is a one-day strike, and so all over the city, teachers, clinicians, PSRPs will be reporting to picket at their schools and not teach. So school will not be operating tomorrow in any normal sense of the word. And we're then going to join rallies at Chicago State, Northeastern Illinois University, UIC, all institutions which are being threatened by the current budget impasse in the middle of the day. And then at the end of the day, at 4 p.m., there's going to be a mass rally with tens of thousands of people at the State of Illinois building.
So is tomorrow, was it a forced furlough day? Because that's what I had heard. Is that incorrect? Are you getting paid tomorrow, or is it a non-paying day?
No, it's a strike day, and people don't get paid to strike.
Is there any concern about, this has been expressed by some, the legality of this one-day walkout in the context of kind of a ramp-up to a formal work stoppage?
Well, Forrest Claypool is the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, is going around saying that it's illegal. But the last time I checked, Claypool doesn't go to work wearing a black robe. He is not a judge.
Yes,
And, you'd mentioned the idea of a show strike. I assure you this is a real strike. And, but the goal is to try to draw attention to a very severe crisis that we're seeing in the public schools and really all the social services. Where, right now they're running the school district on credit cards and borrowing, and that can't continue. There's got to be some revenue or else we're going to lose the public school system. And the social service agencies that support our students when they're not in school, those guys haven't received payments for almost 10 months. And so, this is our attempt to put some urgency into the situation and make it less invisible and force people to talk about it and do something about it.
But you're going to be tying up traffic when the hardworking Chicagoans are going to be trying to leave the city on a Friday afternoon.
Look, I understand it's going to produce some hardship to people's commute, but there's a history of protests and civil disobedience, and that has produced a lot of results in the history of our society.
But do you realize this probably isn't going to change anything? I mean, I'm a CPS parent, and a lot of the parents have been talking, and some teachers too, and just think that this is a waste of time, and actually it's a waste of resources for our children who have to sit a day out.
Well, I understand your opinion about that, but there's a crisis that's been brewing in the public schools. I mean, we've been saying the public schools are broke for a long time now. We're saying they're broke on purpose. And that's because there are politicians who've made the decisions to back billionaire friends and not raise new revenue and not fund our public services. And that's going to produce a crisis where if you hit the snooze button and go back to sleep for a few more months here, there's not going to be public schools. There's not going to be public services. And so we're trying to dramatize that point.
Is Tiny Mayor Emanuel, as you may know him, Tiny Dancer, as I refer to him, is he right when he says, hey, I understand you're upset at Springfield. Get in line. We're all upset at Springfield, and Springfield is the sole source of the problem here. Is he right when he says that?
Well, I mean, our record on Emanuel is pretty clear. I mean, we think there's a number of things that he should be doing now and that he could have been doing in the past to help contribute to solutions. There have been a number of deals with banks that have been very harmful. There have been, the way they use TIF money in the city is a problem. But I will say that, there is a real crisis in the funding mechanism in the state, and that's something which, we don't think that Claypool and Rahm really have a lot of credibility when it comes to this. And this is our attempt to put our credibility out there and say this is us trying to show urgency about the need for a solution.
In 1997, and this is, by the way, the source on this is the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. In 1997, the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund fully funded, 100%. Mm-hmm. In 2014, 51%. How did that happen?
For 13 of the last 20 years, they've either made no payment at all or only a partial payment into the fund. That is, CPS has done that, and that's a big part of the reason. If you don't pay your bills, you don't pay the minimum balance on your credit card, the debt racks up, and that's a big part of what's happening. The fund's also lost some money in the markets, and there's some other things like that going on as well. But we've got to pay our bills. Either that or we're going to have to make massive cuts. And so this is also trying to say those cuts will devastate the schools. Let's try to find some revenue. That's got to be part of the solution.
So the city's picking up 7% right now. How much are you willing to help them out in order to get any of your money back when you retire?
And to be clear, just two-thirds of the teacher's pension contribution, the 7% of the 9% is being picked up by CPS, right?
Teachers are willing to do our part. In fact, have been. There have been a couple of $1 billion worth of cuts to the classrooms that have impacted us, whether that was a 4% raise that was contractually guaranteed, which then got rescinded, or whether that was mass layoffs, which have made conditions harder in classes. I mean, all those are things which we have suffered and now have to work under. And we've said that, we're not looking for a raise, but if there's a 7% cut, then you call it a pickup. But the way that affects teachers is a 7% pay cut. Mm-hmm. And so we're not willing to take a pay cut, in the midst of school having gotten longer, conditions having gotten more difficult. And frankly, in a state budget situation where it seems like the cuts always go to the property taxpayers in the city of Chicago, or the cuts go to the people who depend on social services for the schools, and we're asking people who make the most to pay their share.
Wait. We're getting property tax cuts in Chicago?
No, we're getting property tax increases.
Oh, yes, right, yes. I see what you're saying. That's who bears the burden. I see what you're saying. Right. So let me ask you this, though. If there's no give on the distribution of the teacher's pension contribution into the system, then are we almost guaranteed to see a strike in May?
I think that the question of what's going to happen in May is one that we haven't gotten to yet. I mean, under the current bargaining timeline, we could go out as early as May 16th. Let's see how that goes. Obviously, if there's some revenue for the school system, that helps. Because if it's the context where it's just about like how can we cut $1 billion out of the people who work in the schools and the programs the schools deliver, that's going to be a much uglier picture.
So I understand your position on revenue and tax increases, new taxes, and graduated state income tax, those sorts of things. You've been very transparent about it, very direct about it, which is good. You can have an honest conversation about different policy choices. But what about on the benefits side? We talked about this a bit earlier. A teacher retiring today, CPS teacher, will have paid $133 with 30 years in. Will have paid $133,000 into the pension, with the school district picking up more than 2/3 of that, and will receive $2.1 million in benefits. Is that fair?
I'm not sure where those numbers come from, but I will tell you that
data from the pension funds.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here looking at a spreadsheet, and your listeners are driving to work, and
I understand.
But what I would say is this: that the Chicago teachers don't get Social Security. The pension fund, the defined benefit plan, is what they have to retire on after a lifetime of public service. Teachers in Chicago make substantially less than they do in a number of the suburbs that compete with us. One of the things that we've had as public servants is a pension.
But
that was guaranteed by our. No, so let me finish.
Sure.
Which is that I don't think that our benefit is overly generous from the point of view of what public servants are asked to do in the overall conditions of our employment. I don't.
Well, just on the salary score in terms of what they make and then the pension they rely on. According to the National Council on Teacher Quality, the district in the top 10 districts by size in the country that has the highest lifetime earnings for teachers is Chicago. It's higher than New York, where the cost of living is substantially higher than Chicago.
Teachers in New York wind up at the end of their careers making much more than Chicago, and so I'm not sure where that's how that figure is derived at. But what I'll say is that in Chicago, teacher pay starts pretty well, and in fact, we have a lot of young teachers in Chicago for that reason. But what happens is that our salary schedule is very flat, and so by the time you wind up with people who are skilled veterans, they're making substantially less than in New York, where the salary schedule tops out at almost $35,000 a year more than in Chicago, and frankly, in comparison to the suburbs. And so we wind up with sort of a brain drain in Chicago, where where we have to fight to keep our veteran teachers, and that system is made worse with the constant attacks on the pension system, where people who start to because I'll tell you, a lot of young teachers don't think about retirement. That seems like it's awfully far in the future. But when you start to get older and that starts to become something which you look forward to, the ability to retire, and that becomes important, paying into that pension fund, the fact that the district hasn't paid its share in. So you mentioned they're paying in 7% with the pension pickup. The fact that the district has a contribution that it's supposed to make, and time again, it hasn't been making that contribution. So, we think that, we think we're not overpaid. And what we're saying is that we're not looking for a big raise, but we're looking for the district to guarantee that it's going to protect conditions in the classroom, and we don't want to cut.
All right.
That's the way we're saying it.
All right, Jesse Sharkey, Vice President of Chicago Teachers Union. Thanks always for joining us in my best Mel Brooks impersonation from Princess Bride. Have fun storming the castle tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one